I'm Alaina Pinto. The 2024 Farm Bill is nearing its final version, and while many in the agriculture world are praising it, the hemp community is fearful that a new definition of hemp could destroy their whole industry. Both sides agree that the proliferation of Delta 8 products that are widely available at gas stations and convenience stores where they are being sold to minors is a situation that lawmakers would like to fix. No matter the result, that development and the amendment that is being debated on the floor of the House should make the cannabis THC community happy. On the other hand, is the U.S. Hemp Council that wants the definition of hemp with its 0.3% THC to be left alone. There is also talk about taking the total amount of THC to 1%, which would help that community immensely. At the time of our recording, this bill was nearing its final stages. So subscribe to Pro Cannabis Media, and we will have the latest results and the impact on both communities that are dependent on the same plant. Now let's turn to Virginia and Joe Parsons to see what impact it may have in his state.
I'm Joe Parsons with the Virginia Cannabis Connection, and this is the Virginia Cannabis Report on Weed Talk News. We begin with some positive news from the Commonwealth this week. New data reveals a sizable decline in cannabis-related pediatric ER visits following the Virginia law that went into effect last year. That law requires CBD and THC products to have clear labels that disclose all ingredients. It also places limits on the chemical concentration. While that's been around and commonplace for many years in other legal states, it only became law in July of last year in the Commonwealth. According to Julian Walker, the Vice President of Communications with the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association, he said that since the new law has gone into effect, there's already been a 21.5% decrease in cannabis-related ER visits involving minors. Now that shows that proper regulation can really make a difference. This is in stark contrast to the governor's message of stigma and gloom that stated that the state has already had an epidemic-sized rise of children being harmed by cannabis usage. Big news this week came from the proposed 2024 Farm Bill. The bill that is nearing its completion received a House committee approval on an amendment led by Republican Representative Mary Miller that would close a loophole on the Farm Bill of 2018. This would impose a ban on hemp-derived cannabinoids such as Delta 8 and many others. It could even criminalize CBD products because the measure's scope covers all ingestible hemp products with any level of THC. If enacted into law, cannabinoids that are synthesized or manufactured outside the plant would no longer meet the definition of legal hemp. Now, this is a developing story, and we will continue to keep you up to date as the Farm Bill unfolds. The amendment could, however, be even more complicated for Virginia. The hemp market in Southwest Virginia once was a thriving new market from 2019 to 2022. However, the delays in an expanded medical market, the ongoing battle with hemp-derived products in the hands of children, and then the veto of adult use in the Commonwealth have almost collapsed the hemp market. In 2019, a kilogram of hemp sold for around $3,000, and now that same kilo goes for only $70. The new revision of the Farm Bill could completely destroy an already struggling market and cost many Virginia farmers everything, and their dreams could go up in smoke unless lawmakers can come together. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Virginia Cannabis Report. With the Virginia Cannabis Connection and reporting for Weed Talk News, I'm Joe Parsons. Until next time, stay lifted.
When it comes to state rollouts of a new legal adult use cannabis market, no state can claim that their rollout was the best. In fact, the industry really is looking for the first, but so far, over 20 have had issues. And even the Washington state rollout, which was one of the first in the nation, continues to tweak their legal market after 12 years of legality. However, everyone agrees Oklahoma did it wrong, really wrong. In the beginning of their medical program, the state dished out over 7,300 licenses, and now that number is just over 4,800. Wholesale prices crashed, and a state study concluded that Oklahoma had 32 times more of the amount needed for their 331,000 registered patients. Now that situation was only for their legal medical program. This past week, law enforcement raided a farm in Watonga and found over 17,000 illegal cannabis plants, a total of more than 600 pounds of weed. Police confiscated the entire crop and will destroy it. Law enforcement authorities think this crop was headed to the legacy or illegal market. Okay. But now it's time for the Missouri Report with Brandon Jones.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with B Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report for We Talk News. Happy Memorial Day weekend. And if you can't tell, it's beautiful out here in the state of Missouri. A lot of barbecuing going on and a fun little state law here. If you didn't know, you can actually go to state parks and consume your medical cannabis legally as long as it's in a private place. So you can't be smoking by the campfire or hanging out with your friends at the barbecue. But as long as you go inside your camper or go inside your tent, you can consume your medical cannabis and be completely fine. Another fun, not so fun, story that I found out recently is one of our elderly people in the city of St. Louis, living in a senior facility, was facing eviction for having a vape pen. Okay, I'm sorry. I got to just talk from the heart. This is crazy. An 82-year-old man trying to find medicine to help deal with his pain, anxiety, and issues sleeping was facing eviction from his facility for a vape pen. It's not like he's combusting flower, doing anything crazy. He was literally having a vape pen. They were going to kick him out of his facility. So, yes, we do have recreational cannabis in here in Missouri, but that does not mean that we still have all the laws that we need in place so we can actually consume it privately, consume it safely, and just be able to have it wherever we're living. So, yes, we're facing it in senior facilities, lots of different places where there's government assisted paid. So, we do want to find a way that we can actually be able to consume our cannabis, not only be able to purchase it. Right? That's part of it, right? Purchasing it is great, but where can we consume it legally and not be in trouble? An 82-year-old man in a senior facility should not be a place where he's not allowed to vape to make himself feel better. So, everybody, stay medicated, stay educated, have a safe and fun Memorial Day weekend. I'm Brandon Jones with B Green Distribution. Have a great weekend. See you next week.
I'm Marianne from Alibi with this week's Oregon Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. This week in Oregon, the primary election results are in. Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt is out, and challenger Nathan Vasquez will become the DA. Vasquez has promised more law enforcement actions, so this is great news for cannabis businesses who have suffered from repeated robberies and vandalism. On that note, Portland police arrested this week a man suspected of a string of armed robberies of dispensaries. He has been implicated in at least 5 robberies this year. And finally, other news this week in Oregon has been focused on 2 federal changes: the rescheduling of cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 and the 2024 Farm Bill. We are a long ways from knowing exactly how these 2 items will play out, but an amendment to the Farm Bill proposed this week would ban hemp-derived intoxicants, and if this is included in the final Farm Bill, would upend the entire hemp industry. That's the Oregon Cannabis Report for this week. I'm Marianne with Alibi.
And now to our friendly neighbors in the north in Canada, where that market continues to adapt to changing laws and regulations. Here's Debi Facey and Doug Miller's High on Wall Street.
This is your Canadian correspondent, Debi Facey, with the Canadian Strain this week. So what we have in Canada this week, which is our largest story, is the rise in seniors that are actually being hospitalized due to the percentage content of the THC within most of our edibles and pre-rolls. The Dr. Nathan Stahl of Sinai Health had presented a study where we had seen a rise from a whopping 5.8 per 100,000 pre-legalization to a 21 per 1 per 100,000 post edibles legalization, which means that even though COVID was a factor that played into the matter of overconsumption as well, the THC percentage that most of our consumers are consuming aren't necessarily getting the understanding of how the products are actually working and how it actually will affect them later on. So this is something that most of the LPs, also brands, are going to have to start looking into when they are creating their products, because of the fact that we've had not only a rise in infants, not only infants, but in children and teens, but now with seniors being on board. This is something that we do have to consider, and we have to make sure that we do not necessarily attack, but we do actually strain out the problems and make it a more pure medicine for everyone to enjoy. This is your Canadian correspondent with the Canadian Strain This Week. Peace.
I'm Doug Miller from Highland Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Weed Talk News. Tilray Brands is preparing for marijuana reform in the United States with plans to raise up to $250 million through an at-the-market ATM equity program. The net proceeds of the equity raised won't be used for operating expenses, but rather to fund acquisitions or investments in business. So let's see how this affects the stock chart. It is trading around $1.85, and it has dipped the last few days, but it looks like it's bottoming out and it's going to start reversing to run back up. So watch for dips and trade smart. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Weed Talk News, I'm Doug Miller.
One of our new features on We Talk News is checking in with our friends at Cannabis Legalization News and Thomas Howard and his co-host, Miggy 420. So here's an excerpt from this week's show.
I want to cover our lead story, which is the amendments to the Farm Bill that were passed, by the way. These did actually pass, and she offered by Mrs. Miller of Illinois. And so here's cannabis and then exclusions. Now, hemp is not just one thing. Hemp is now 4-ish things. And so there's hemp, there's exclusions to hemp, there's industrial hemp, and then there's hemp for cannabinoid extraction. With hilarious, right? And so whether or not this is actually going to be the Farm Bill, I don't know. But this is what the Republicans want. And there's an election in November. Yeah. Think about that.
That's the unfortunate part. You know, people get butthurt when we talk about politics, but politics is how we got here, right? Like recently,
like an issue, huge.
Well, it's not just political though. Like, because you're a registered Democrat. Like, you know, you and I think about how you come from like a white collar world, and I come from more of a blue collar world.
I'm a second generation lawyer. Yeah,
so
that's right.
So I'm saying but you understand more of like how the wheels turn. I'm more understanding about how being the wheel is. Right, like there's just two dynamics to what we call America, right? And so the politics part, like, man, if you saw that libertarian stuff yesterday where the last guy started speaking, you're like, how do these people still support? Like, this guy's speckled. It's not. There's no leadership. There's no real structure. You know, we've got an infrastructure.
You can't have libertarians can never win because they believe in freedom too much. They would never create a hierarchical structure to organize and effectuate their common goals. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why we have a two-party system.
Exactly. And that's what we have, though, right? That's the whole point is what I'm trying to say. The two-party system is what we have. You know, right now, the Dems are leading the game for the general population. For descheduling it is a chance. Like if now's the time you make a comment. Go through the comments. But like back to the hemp bill though, these are amendments, right? They're not even gone through to the Senate now or the House. Who has?
Oh no, it's much further along than you'd think. And so Joe asked, what's going to happen to online sales? They're going to be as legal as they are right now. Because I don't think that, the argument that the DEA and many of the people in Congress are making is THCA is marijuana. You have gone over the line. Delta 8 is Schedule 1 tetrahydrocannabinol under the law because it's synthetic. And so they just have not been really enforcing it. Okay. And you're seeing the change in real time.
Sure.
They found you out.
Well, this is going to affect all the gas station weed, right? This is all the gas station weed's
gone. Yeah.
Right.
The online weed. But the problem that I don't like is that it's right here. It's this one, the exclusions. And so I'm going to pop that over. Any viable seed from cannabis sativa L that exceeds a total THC concentration, including THCA in parens, just like in case your THC is not THC defined enough, of 0.3% in the plant on a dry wave basis. And so they even say the seeds from a plant that has this THC concentration will not be considered hemp. I don't like that. I think it gets into an enforcement issue and also an arbitrary issue. But, you know, speaking of arbitrary issues, the 0.3% Delta 9 THC regulation of hemp doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah. Really. I mean, you could do it though, but then like, would you want to do it by the seed or the genetic? And so the genetic regulation makes a lot of sense. And then there are 5 years ago when this was about CBD and industry and not about getting you high. Not sure if any of the people in hemp remember that. It was the type of ratio of cannabinoids, cannabis that they would have. So Dr. Ethan Russo had like the type 1, the type 2, the type 3 cannabis. And so like the THC dominant, the hybrid 1-to-1 kind of ratio, and then the CBD dominant 20-to-1 ratio pretty much on either side. So if you just say that these genetics are hemp, great. But then the FDA never made any rules for the food stuff that became the cannabinoids, the hemp cannabinoid industry.
And finally tonight, if you were waiting for the state of New York to get tough on the illicit dispensaries that are everywhere, this next story might just give other stores pause. The New York Attorney General, Letitia James, received court approval to deliver a $15.2 million fine against an owner of 7 of those illegal storefronts. David Tootley owned a series of stores that operated illegally under the name of, quote, I'm Stuck. Over the past few years, he had ignored repeated notices and orders from the Office of Cannabis Management, and now has to pay back over $7 million from past sales and an $8 million fine. So I guess he has enough money to hire a good attorney, but this is the largest fine in New York cannabis history. Only time will tell if other illegal store owners will follow. That will do it for this week's Weed Talk News. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. We'll see you next time. I'm Alaina Pinto. Have a great day.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. You know, I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weedgets filtration system. What? The Weedgets.com, Weedgets, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. The guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. Now, add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weedgets.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind.